Section 4. You will hear a seminar by a researcher on human longevity research. First, you have some time to read through questions 19 to 22. Now listen carefully and answer questions 19 to 22.
Many people are not aware of the reasons for longevity, but recent studies have revealed that there are many things to consider. For this morning's seminar, I'm going to focus on human longevity. Human longevity is a topic I've been involved with as a scientist for over 20 years. I'd like to share some of the key points of recent research with you and discuss some of the contributing factors to longevity. There's been a battle among scientists over whether genes or environment and behavior determine a person's lifespan. Do people live longer because of heredity or genes, or is longevity nurtured through healthy habits? We are finding that it's a combination of factors. Some that are learned and others are from nature. First, I am going to discuss nature, or more specifically, genetic factors for longer lifespans. For a long while, researchers have been searching for what they call the longevity gene. A prevailing theory has been that longevity is predetermined by a person's genetics. So, have they discovered this gene yet? Well, no, but biologists have recently identified a protein, SIRT3, as the possible key to slowing down the aging process. What they found was that this protein helped stem cells cope with stress. But just months after the results of this study were released, another group of researchers published an article revealing several flaws in the study. Their strongest critique was that a molecular-level response doesn't necessarily translate into longer lives for people. Now, I'd like to talk about behavioral factors, or the nurture aspect of longevity. Most researchers now agree that the causes of longevity are complex, and that even if there is a gene for longevity, other factors, both environmental and behavioral, can weigh in just as much. Take, for example, an 80-year study called the Longevity Project that was conducted by a team of social psychologists in the US. 1,500 people took part in the experiment from the time they were kids in 1921. And it tracked every possible environmental and behavioral factor to determine the character traits, habits, and mindsets that make some people live longer. You might think that things like healthy habits would be more predictive of a long life. However, the study actually revealed that personality characteristics and social relationships from childhood are predictive of a person's lifespan. In other words, there were correlations between certain behavioral or environmental factors and longevity. One example from the study revealed that it is the most prudent and persistent individuals, not the most cheerful and humorous ones, who survive the longest. It also showed that those who were hard workers and were most committed to their careers lived longer. We often associate a relaxed, stress-free attitude with a longer, healthier life, but that's not always the case. And one final bit of information comes from another study conducted by a team at Brigham Young University. The results show that people who maintain strong friendships and relationships tend to live longer.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a lecture by a psychology professor about the effects of meditation on the brain. First, you have some time to read through questions 23 to 28. Now listen carefully and answer questions 23 to 28.
Today we're going to talk about the catalyst behind the recent trend in people taking up the practice of meditation. Now, this particular trend is tied directly to an increasing amount of scientific research, which has shown the benefits of meditation. First, I'm going to explain how science measures meditation's effects on the brain, and then we'll look at some scientific studies. To start, it's important to remember that scientific studies of meditation's effects on the central nervous system are broken down into two categories. The first is the study of state changes, which are instant changes in brain activity that occur while meditating. The second involves looking for trait changes, which are more permanent changes resulting from long-term practice of meditation. To perform studies, scientists use several technologies. The most common one is electroencephalography, or EEG, which measures the electrical activity of the outer layer of our brains. EEG measures the duration of brain activity very effectively and precisely. However, it isn't as effective at locating the activity in the brain. In contrast to the EEG is another method which is called neuroimaging. Scientists use neuroimaging to detect blood flow to areas of the brain, as blood flow indicates those areas are being used. Knowing this helps scientists understand which brain functions are affected during meditation. Thus, unlike EEG, neuroimaging is better at identifying location. So, let's look specifically into some recent findings. There have been studies of those practicing vipassana, an ancient form of meditation from India. They indicated a lot of activity in areas of the cortex related to the ability to focus on an activity, and showed that meditators have improved control over their attention levels. They were less prone to being affected by noises or other distractions. Later, studies conducted on practitioners of ancient Japanese Zen meditation resulted in similar findings. It's also been discovered that meditators experience emotional states more powerfully than most people. In 2008, Antoine Lutz, a neuroscientist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, did a study of emotional response during meditation. He tested subjects' responses to emotionally charged sounds during meditation. By using neuroimaging, he was able to see increased activity in areas of the brain related to emotional reaction. Now that I've discussed findings related to state changes, what about the longer-term trait changes? Well, there is evidence that meditation protects against the natural reduction in grey matter. That is, the volume of the brain doesn't shrink as much with age. So, though meditation does not actually increase brain size, long-term meditators have better attention in their later years. So there are definitely benefits for aging. But there are also clinical applications of meditation that offer promising long-term results. An example of this is the effectiveness of regular meditation in treating depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Meditation also has some physiological applications in terms of dieting, where it is part of the mindfulness diet, and exercise, especially when combined with yoga. In conclusion, there is evidence to show that there are both state and long-term benefits for those who practice meditation on a regular basis. And I believe this will help continue the trend of more people becoming regular practitioners.
You now have 15 seconds to check your answers.